Have you ever wondered if the greatest treasure isn't found at the end of the road, but is actually hidden in the road itself? Well, we're about to dive into a story that's built on that very idea. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the most incredible rewards we find aren't at our destination, but in the journey we take to get there. We've all heard this, right? It's this timeless piece of wisdom, usually meant to just get us to, well, get started. But today, this quote is so much more. It's the beating heart of a story that explores not just that first step, but all the tough, messy, and beautiful steps that come after. All right, so let's set the scene. Our story kicks off in this isolated little village called Sands Reach. It's a pretty predictable place, surrounded by a huge, endless sea of sand. And this is where we meet our guy, Rian, a young man who just feels this deep, restless yearning for something more, something way beyond the horizon he sees day in and day out. So what was it that captured Rian's imagination? It was a legend his grandfather used to tell him, a story about the Emerald City, a supposed paradise with streets of gold and towers that scraped the sky. Now, for most of the villagers, it was just a fairy tale, right? A myth. But for Rian, it became this incredible, all-consuming goal that just lit a fire in his soul. So how does a dream like that become an actual plan? Well, it all comes down to a single moment, that one point where this vague longing turns into a real life-changing decision. And that's what happened. One evening, as the sun was setting, Rian made a choice, and there was no going back. He decided he was going to leave the only home he'd ever known and find that Emerald City. He was literally going to chase a goal that everyone, and I mean everyone, told him was impossible. And this is where his grandfather gives him this incredible piece of wisdom. See, he doesn't talk about the city or the gold. He tells Rian that the real value, the thing that truly matters, is the act of starting. It's about having the guts to just take that first step into the unknown. And that advice, it becomes Rian's compass for everything that's about to happen. But look, courage can only get you so far. Rian's journey was anything but easy. It was this intense mix of extreme highs and crushing lows, a true test that would show him just how harsh the world could be, and also how beautiful. At first, the reality of it all was just brutal. I mean, an absolutely relentless sun and a desert that just never seemed to end. It was the kind of physical and mental challenge that would make anyone want to just turn around and give up. But then, just when his spirit was about to break, the journey offered him this little miracle. He stumbles upon a hidden oasis. And finding that place, it wasn't just about replenishing his water. It replenished his hope. It was exactly what he needed to keep going. Of course, the challenges didn't stop there. He had to deal with these blinding sandstorms that just turned his whole world into chaos. And in those moments, there was nothing he could do but find shelter and just wait. It was a powerful lesson in patience and humility. But that same desert also showed him moments of pure wonder. In the dead of night, far away from any lights, Rian looked up and saw a sky just bursting with more stars than he ever dreamed existed. A sight he never would have seen if he'd just stayed home. Rian's journey was through a literal desert, but we all face our own intimidating paths, don't we? It kind of makes you stop and think, what journey in your own life have you been putting off just because the path looks a little too scary or a little too hard? So after months and months of this grueling travel, Rian is finally getting close. He can actually see it on the horizon. But the prize he fought so hard for, well, it's about to deliver a pretty shocking twist. Can you just imagine that feeling for a second? Totally exhausted, probably weak, but just filled with this incredible surge of adrenaline and victory. After everything he went through, he actually did it. He found the legendary Emerald City. But here's the reality. The dream was a paradise. The reality? It was a ghost town. Magnificent, sure, but completely empty. The paradise he'd been chasing was nothing more than an old, forgotten monument. The disappointment must have been absolutely crushing. As Rian walked through those silent streets, though, something started to click. A deep understanding began to sink in. The Emerald City, it was never the real prize. The true reward was everything he had become along the way. All the strength, the resilience, the wisdom that was forged out there in the desert. And that realization changes everything. So when Rian decides to go home, it's not a retreat. It's a homecoming.
he's heading back carrying a treasure that's way more valuable than any amount of gold.
The desert hadn't changed, but Rian sure had. The walk back was just as long and just as hard, but he walked it differently. He wasn't searching for something out there anymore. He walked with this new sense of peace and purpose that he had found inside himself. The person who walked back into Sandsreach was not the same person who had left. That restless boy was gone. In his place was a man who had faced down his fears, who had stared into the vast emptiness of the desert, and in doing so, discovered the incredible fullness of his own strength and courage. And that brings us full circle, back to his grandfather's wisdom, but with this beautiful new layer. A journey begins with one step, sure, but the real meaning, the real transformation, that happens in all those steps in between. That right there is what truly matters. So I'll leave you with this thought. We all have our own Emerald City, right? That goal we're working so hard to reach. But what if the real treasure isn't getting there? What if it's the person you become on the way? So what journey in your life right now holds your true reward?